We got a big deal with Japan setting the tariff rate to 15%, and Japan is going to include a $550 billion investment in the US. It'll partly come in the form of loan guarantees. With that being said, it did bring the market up last night a decent amount, and pre-market hours, we are looking pretty good, especially for some stocks like Nvidia. If you guys got into that dip buy situation, I got into the dip buy all the way down here somehow. I don't know how I scoped it out so well. This was one of those lucky plays that I got into. But I personally wanted to hold it the next day. Was kind of scared when the market closed down even more. But with that all being said, man, we are opening up a little bit higher with Nvidia. And I want to see if Nvidia can test that 169.5 to that 170. Look a little bit more bullish again. Go back to some highs. Break 171.5. 172.5, and then finally 173.5. We could probably get some new highs with Nvidia. But if we zoom out a little bit more, we do see chip stocks kind of slowing down a little bit more. And honestly, that big sell-off at market open didn't really look too good yesterday. So I would have my cautious if you guys are getting into chip stocks. They're not really looking too good, but we do got some other news with chip stocks that we're going to be covering a little bit later. And that might bring chip stocks up even more if that news comes out to be bullish. With that being said, we did also have a breakup with Apple, even more, passing that 215.3 level, which is kind of insane. So we're retesting those highs that we had basically on Monday. And honestly, man, if we could break past this, get to 216, 216.5, 217.5, and 220, Apple can be looking a little bit more healthier. People are kind of bullish on the earnings that is coming out the 31st. But with that all being said, man, people are also saying the long term doesn't really look too good as well. But with that being said, man, I was looking in the phones the other day and I was thinking, like, Apple, man, Apple is still making a big shift. Everybody's going to be using Apple. I mean, I don't really see the memes no more. People like Android versus Apple no more as much as I used to back in the day. But with that all being said, man, I don't think people is going to upgrade from their Apple to a Samsung. So with that all being said, man, I think Apple is still going to be, breaking past some sales. But I do want to see something different, like their flipped and maybe some AI news coming out for Apple to finally get out of this, 16% dip basically. But we do have markets up overall. We have Google and Tesla earnings tomorrow, which is going to be insane. Google is a little bit more bullish than Tesla. People are a little bit more bearish overall on Tesla, but it is still breaking to the upside and looking pretty good. First link in the description below, I have a bunch of courses to help you guys become more profitable. I have a long term that gives you guys 40 free stocks to outperform the S&P 500, especially in this time. And I also have, how to read charts, basic beginner things for trading overall, and how to make money off of $0 on your computer. So go check out these courses with that code down below. You guys can get 50% off, and the courses are already relatively cheap. I can promise you'll make your money back within the first day of using all the knowledge that you guys learned, and has step-to-step guides too. So honestly, relatively easy to use. But with that all being said, man, so I'm not wasting too much of you guys' time. We're going to be covering the main news right now, but we're just going to be summarizing it. Then we'll get more in depth into it and give you guys some sports and resistance. But basically, man, I'm seeing if SPY and the SPX can get back to some all-time highs, and the market keeps on going up. But we are kind of slowing, so keep that on your mind. And we have a lot of bearish plays getting played now. So bigger firms are playing it to the downside, and we might get a little bit of a pullback finally. With that being said, I'm saying finally, because we have been in this bull rally for honestly a minute now. Ever since April, man, we have been going up. So a healthy pullback isn't really that bad for the market overall. But the stocks are still well priced. And honestly, man, we still got some room to move to the upside for some stocks, especially Apple. That's why I'm watching Apple, because even when we dip, man, let's zoom into Apple a little bit more. Let me show you guys why I like Apple so much right now. Because that dip that we seen in the morning, look at how Apple moves compared to, like, let's say Nvidia. Nvidia had a big sell-off. The overall SPY had a big sell-off. Tesla had a big sell-off. And even Google, which Google is moving pretty healthy and people are bullish on the earnings, that had a big sell-off. But Apple did not. Apple is a little bit like safer for now until we get to some higher levels, just because Apple is still down from that dip that we had in April. Compared to other stocks, man, Apple did get down below that $200 level, but we did break up a decent amount, and we kind of just been around this, 215 to that 207 level for the past couple of weeks. And honestly, hasn't really been moving too much. But right now we are making a breakout back up past that 215. So if we can get like 220, 225, we can look a little bit more bullish overall. 225 is going to be a key level to watch. And if we can break past that, Apple is going to be looking a little bit more healthier. But with that being said, man, I've been watching Apple, having Apple on my radar. But seeing how much it held up, I'm not going to buy no put options. I mean, it's probably a good opportunity at that 215, but right now we're making a breakout. So I personally would not. But I'm personally waiting for a play below that 210 level, maybe even back down to that 209. That's what I played before. I used to play like 209.5 to that 207.5 level to buy some call options, and they normally hit. But right now, buying a call option right now on Apple just isn't really healthy. I might wait for a little bit of a pullback, maybe now until that 212.5. I might buy a little call option there, but even then, it's not really that safe. The risk to reward ain't really there yet, but that 212.5 ain't a bad level to watch, especially if you hold up above that once again. So let's talk more about earnings a little bit, man. We do got AT&T that might move the market a little bit, but maybe not, because we had Verizon beat expectations. So maybe if AT&T can beat expectations, and also after hours we see T-Mobile beat expectations, we could probably see all of these stocks up. But with that all being said, today we got a big one: Tesla and Alphabet. We also have IBM and Chipotle, which might move as well. But with that all being said, man, let me pull out this little screenshot I got. So basically, man, if we look at this, man, Alphabet, C or A, C, and Tesla 789. So this can really move the overall stock market, SPY, anything like that. So I am kind of seeing, since they report tomorrow, it can move. It has a pretty big weighing on the overall stock market. And with that being said, man, Google is big into AI. Big, like they have their own chips, I believe. Google is big on AI, and I mean, honestly, Tesla is as well. So this can move AI stocks like Nvidia, Microsoft, and even like Amazon, because Google has cloud. So Amazon, Microsoft, you can see that for the cloud overall, and even Broadcom, we can see move off of this. So we have other stocks that can move based on these earnings too, that can move the SPY as well. So if we get good earnings, especially with Google, we could probably see Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, maybe make a breakup from that. And then potentially Tesla, man, if we can see good earnings with Tesla, we might see Nvidia move, maybe even, Microsoft and stuff like that. But honestly, man, just have your patience. I'm personally playing these plays right after the earnings, not before, because the premiums are already high, and stuff like that. It's already priced in, basically. With that all being said, though, I am going to be getting in that Nvidia and potentially Apple. These are two plays that I'm personally watching today at those levels that I gave you guys for Apple. I'm going to be giving you guys some new levels for Nvidia, just because chip stocks just don't look too healthy. But I'm going to be coming out with news right after we talk about earnings in the calendar that might move Nvidia, Broadcom, and maybe other chip stocks up overall. So today, Wednesday, July 23rd, we only have existing home sales. This might move the market, but it might not, honestly, unless you guys are getting into like those home builder or something like that stocks. But Thursday is going to be a little bit bigger. We do have initial jobless claims 30 minutes or an hour before market opens. And then 15 minutes after market opens, we have the PMI and new home sales coming out. 15 minutes after the PMI. So keep this on your radar, because initial jobless claims and the PMI can potentially move, especially if you guys are getting to those early trades, which I don't even recommend. You should wait 15 minutes anyway. But if you guys are getting into those early trades, keep the PMI on your radar as well. So for Tesla, unlike Google, which we are going to talk about after, a lot of investors are more bearish on Tesla's earnings, showing an expected 10% decline in revenue from the same time a year ago, $22.9 billion, while the adjusted earnings per share is projected to fall nearly 20% year over year. So, I mean, this is just projections. We don't know for sure, but honestly, man, this might bring Tesla down overall. And that's why a lot of people are bearish on it. But with that all being said, man, you never know. Earnings can always shift. You can you can literally like not beat earnings, but then maybe the earnings call afterwards can bring it up too. But Google is looking pretty good overall. I think they were on like a 10-day win streak or something like that, which is kind of insane. But they beat their EPS for 9 straight quarters. People are a lot more bearish on Google's earnings. Google is indeed breaking to the upside a lot. Keep in mind, today premiums are going to be shot up, so be patient. I wouldn't really get into a play before earnings anyway. But honestly, I'm very, very pumped to see how the earnings play out and if Google can break past that $200 level because of this. So honestly, man, just have your patience with Google, and I'm kind of pumped to see what happens. I think we're priced in for like 7% moves. So talking about AI a little bit more, and even energy, we have something else that is good for the stock market, and even seeing a shift back to the upside for AI stocks. Maybe this can shift it, maybe not. But Trump is coming out today, loosening some rules on AI guidelines and expanding energy sources for data centers overall, because you guys know that takes a lot of energy. So you could probably see energy and AI stocks up with this. I'm going to keep my eye on Nvidia and AMD and potentially even Broadcom, but all AI stocks can move off this. And especially when Trump does something, we do sometimes see a big move in the stock market overall. So have this on your mind and on your radar for today. But it should be today July 23rd. So another thing that can bring a lot of volatility and more money overall into the stock market is the day trading loosening underneath the proposed rule change. So with that all being said, man, in the past, you needed $25,000 in their margin account to borrow to trade four or more times in a day trading period. But now they're saying that you only have to have $2,000 in your account for such trades. But this is kind of like off and on because you might guys might just see, as a margin account, you might have, let's say if you have like $1,000 in your margin account and you buy and sell a trade, basically you sell that trade and you still have your $1,000. You don't have to wait that 1 day for it to settle, because if you have a cash account, you can have unlimited day trades, but you have to wait for your money to settle basically. But this is going to change it. Mainly, like, let's say if you have $2,000 and you don't fall below that range, you can day trade basically like normal four more times. But with that all being said, man, this is mainly, there's another version where you borrow money. So let's say if you have like $2,000 in your margin account and you can borrow like $1,000, basically getting a loan. This can put people in more debt overall with the stock market, especially if you guys are gambling your money. So honestly, man, it's good and bad. But honestly, man, I do recommend just going into a cash account, and just if you have more than $2,000, you can trade with $1,000 per day and still have, the opportunity to day trade. But with that all being said, man, be careful with this. If this does drop, don't get yourself into debt. Don't really borrow money. Personally, just use whatever's in your margin account overall. Like if you have like $5,000, just use that. Don't borrow, especially for, especially for option trades, because you can lose money relatively quick if you don't do the right play. And sometimes even if you do the right play, stick to your plan and everything, you can still lose money. So I just recommend, man, just trade with what you have. Don't borrow more money. But this is going to be insane, and it's going to bring more money into the stock market overall, more borrowing. And honestly, man, it is kind of insane. But keep this one on your radar. But before we got some good news bringing the market up overall, man, we did have that big sell-off, but sooner or later after that, man, we kind of just came back up with the overall SPY. And honestly, this was a healthy move if you guys are bearish or bullish. If you guys are bearish, you guys could have made that play initially. If you guys are bullish, you guys could have bought that dip and then honestly just rode it up once again. And it was a big drop. It was a surprising drop, because I remember I had a notification and it said Nvidia fell below 165, and I was like, what? 165? Because I remember seeing at 170. And then honestly, man, that's when I made my play below that 165. And honestly, it paid off pretty well until the end of the day. But with that all being said, man, I'm being a little bit more patient. I think Palantir moved a little bit better. AMD as well, we had a big drop, and then AMD came up a little bit better than, Nvidia overall. And honestly, I mean, if we just look at the SPY just went back and made some new highs for the day. So honestly, SPY did move pretty good overall yesterday. But with that all being said, man, let's talk about some supports and resistance and some potential plays that you guys can make. So first off, AMD, if we do start itching up to the upside, I'm going to be looking at that 156.5. 158 and that 160 level. If we could break above that 160, I'm looking at 161.5 and that 165. If we do start breaking down, we're looking at that 154, 152.5, and that 151.5 to that 150. And honestly, below that 150, I'm going to be looking at that 149.5 level. And then it might be a little bit more bearish past that, honestly. Next one is going to be Boeing. Boeing did do the same thing, sold off, but it came back really, really fast. So honestly, man, this is looking pretty healthy overall. It's not really too high from this trade news. I don't really think it really matters. But with that all being said, 230, 231.5, 232.5, and that 235 level. To the downside, 228.5, 227.5, and that 226 level. We break below that 226. Look at that 225.5 to that 224 level, and then 220 next for Boeing to the downside. Next is going to be SPY, man. SPY, we are doing pretty good, moving pretty good. I'm going to be looking at that 632.5, 635, and that 640 level. We're going to be giving you guys some big ranges for SPY. To the downside, 630.5, 630, 628.5, 627.5, and then that 626 level. If you break below that, we're going to be looking a little bit more bearish overall. But if you guys do want to scope out some plays, do look at that 626. And if we hold up pretty strong and it starts bouncing in a good way, basically, you can make a little call option off of that. And if it bounces down even lower, I'd probably have my patience and just wait it out a little bit. The video, one that I'm personally watching and one that I have a play in right now. As I said, I bought it at that 165 level. With that all being said, man, I want to see how the stock market opens. If we start opening up red, I'm definitely going to get out. But if we start opening up green, I'm going to be holding my play for a little bit longer. I'm very, very pumped to see how that AI basically meeting or whatever goes, maybe it can bring Nvidia up even more. We might even see Nvidia test out 170 and go up even higher. But I am going to be watching that 170, 171.5, 172.5, and that 173.5. We can break above that 175 to that 180. But Nvidia is honestly still looking pretty bearish overall. And honestly, man, I wouldn't really play this one that much no more. I think it's overdone now, and people are taking profits, getting out, going into other stocks. So have your patience with Nvidia to the downside, 167.5, 166.5, and that 165 level. If we break below that, we're gonna be looking like really bearish, honestly. And maybe if you get down to that 163.5 to that 162.5. But honestly, man, just take it with a grain of salt. Take your time. And honestly, man, have patience with this one. Next one, of course, Apple, man. One of my favorites right now. Just holding up pretty strong, like I said. With that being said, to the downside, look at that 215, 214.5. 214, 213.5, 213, and that 212.5 level. With that all being said, man, like I said before, I'm going to be looking at that 212.3 to that 212.5 to get into a play. But I'm going to have my patience that if we break down even more, 212 flat, I think 212 is a decent level to buy, and that 211.5 as well for right now. But if we get some bad news overall, I'm probably not going to play no call options until, I buy the dip basically to say. But yeah, man. So Tesla, man, I want to talk a little bit more about Tesla. We do got earnings, so I don't recommend playing pre-earnings. Premiums are high and stuff like that. It's just not worth it. With that all being said, though, to the downside, look at that 330, 325, 320. Upside 335, 336.5, I guess. And then look at that 340 after that. If we get that 340, we can look a little bit more bullish and honestly break past this range because now we're kind of in a little bit of a range now. So if we can break above that 337, we can look a little bit more bullish overall. And we're kind of in a wedge overall with Tesla, but it is going to the upside. So it's not really anything major to look at. Bitcoin's not really moving too good, kind of still in this range. So I don't even recommend trading it. But if you guys do see it break out of this range, look at MSTR, Coinbase, and IBIT. These are good stocks to trade if you guys want to get into some option plays for Bitcoin overall. Ethereum, basically, man. Ethereum is also making kind of a break to the downside. So if you guys do want to play some plays, you can probably play ETHA, which is basically ETF that moves with it. You can probably play this one to the downside, but I'd be a little bit more patient, wait until it breaks some key levels before you guys do get into a put option because we might just like reverse and go to the upside once again. So keep that on your mind. XRP is below that 3.5 level. So honestly, just have your patience with this one. If we break below that 3.35, we might be a little bit more bearish and go into the downside. And honestly, it might be a good opportunity to get in. So honestly, man, just have your patience overall with the stock market, man. Good luck trading. Man, we got earnings. I'm very, very pumped to see how Tesla and Google is like basically plays out. Smash the like button, subscribe. Let's get to 500 subs. Comment down below any questions that you guys have, any stocks that you guys are watching, and how much money you guys made so far this week. Let's stay green. And honestly, man, stay patient and you guys will make it out. Peace out.